Hi, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Well, tonight we're starting out with our Learner's Minyan before our Kabbalat Shabbat services, so I thought we'd combine them together. So those who wish to join us for Learner's Minyan now at 7 can tune in now, and at 7:30 we'll still be going with Kabbalat Shabbat, so you can join us then. I see already we have some friends watching, so welcome, and more will join us hopefully soon. This month for Learner's Minyan, since all of us are at home most of the time, instead of discussing liturgy that we would do in the synagogue, I thought we'd discuss something that we can do at home, that we also do in our synagogue, and that's the blessing we call our Kiddush. Here at Temple Israel on Friday evenings, after our services conclude, we join together in Kiddush and Motzi, and we begin with some words that I chant typically from up here. Vayhi erev vayivoker yom hashishi. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Vayachula hashamayim v'char tzvachot tzava'am v'chal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i melachto asher asa v'yishpot b'yom hashvi'i mikol lachto asher asa v'yivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i v'kadesh oto kivo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim la'asot. The heaven and the earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing. And God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it, God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. We then move to the blessing. Most people are very familiar with the first blessing, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. And then the longer blessing, which we choose to do afterwards. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uv'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who finding favor with us, sanctified us with mitzvot. In love and favor, you made the Holy Shabbat our heritage as a reminder of the work of creation. Ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh, Zecher letziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'charta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha b'ahava uv'ratzon hinchaltanu, baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha'shabbat. As first among our sacred days, it recalls the exodus from Egypt. You chose us and set us apart from the peoples. In love and favor, you have given us holy Shabbat as an inheritance. Praised are you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. So that is it's pretty familiar. So what you choose to do when you're home, you can do all of it, you can do some of it. Hopefully, by the end of this teaching session, we'll give you a little more perspective and some more ideas as what to choose. So let's start from that first, what we call the preamble, the beginning, which typically is chanted by Yeher, by Yivoker, Yom HaShishi. There was evening and there was morning. So this is what we call the preamble to the Kiddush from Genesis 1:31. The last half of the last verse describing the creation of day 6, followed by the description of day 7, Genesis 2:1-3, the primeval Shabbat of creation. Day 1 of the biblical narrative begins in the beginning of God's creation of heaven and earth. Day 7 begins, the heaven and the earth were finished, a perfect recapitulation of the way the story began. We come to Vayichulu Hashamayim Ba'aretz V'Kol Tzava'am, the heaven and the earth were finished. The use of melachto here, Vayichulu Hashamayim Ba'aretz V'Kol Tzava'am, V'chal Elohim Bayom HaShvi'i Melachto Asher Asah. Melachto meaning work, indicates that creation is viewed as a melacha, as the kind of work prohibited on Shabbat. Moreover, although verse 1 is in the passive voice, the heaven and the earth were finished, part of Shabbat. We come to V'kadesh oto kivo Shabbat mikol melachto asher bara lahu lasot. God had blessed other elements on the 5th and 6th day of creation, Genesis 1:22 and 1:28, but only the Shabbat is sanctified as its pinnacle. It's henceforth intrinsically holy as a commemoration of God's work as creator. This is why sanctions for Shabbat violations, what we would call the violations of Shomer Shabbos, are so serious. The Jew who works on Shabbat is, according to tradition, implicitly denying the role of God in the work of creation. In other words, when we cease to do work on Shabbat, we imitate our deity, God, and it goes the other way. That if we work on Shabbat, we are, according to the rabbis, denying God's work in creation. So then we move to, so that's sort of from biblical aspects. If we move to the blessing that all of us are so familiar with, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. It's a standard formula for rabbinic blessings, and it's based on, in part, some late biblical texts. Fruit of the vine, borei pri hagafen, is post-biblical, but is derived from similar biblical precedents, such as fruit of the tree, which we see in Genesis 3:3, and fruit of the earth from Genesis 4:3, and which are used in rabbinic blessings for fruits and vegetables. So borei pri ha'etz and borei pri ha'adama. So wine, which goes in our Kiddush cup, rather than water, was the standard biblical beverage. It's mentioned close to 200 times, and 9 Hebrew words are used for wine or types of wine. So wine's important. With God's commandment, so this comes from the longer part of the blessing here, our second blessing. Asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu b'shabbat kodsho. The Bible never mentions the idea that God's commandments generally sanctify Israel. It doesn't mention that generally, but especially with the holiness collection, the Holiness Code. Specific commandments would be found in Leviticus 19 and 20, coupled with the injunction that Israel should be holy. Israel's holiness, and thus our holiness, is connected explicitly to the observance of Shabbat. We see that in Exodus 31:13. You must keep my Sabbath. This is a sign between me and you throughout the ages, that you may know that I, Adonai, have consecrated or sanctified you. In the book of Ezekiel 20:12, moreover, it says, I gave them my Sabbaths to serve as a sign between me and them. In this case, the mention of God's commandments anticipates the Shabbat in particular, which is the sign of God's love or adoring for Israel, because Shabbat, the Sabbath, in existence since creation, was first revealed to Israel. We end our that blessing, actually sort of in the middle, right? You made the holy Shabbat, right? The Shabbat Kodsho. You made the holy Shabbat. The holiness of Shabbat is regularly affirmed in the Bible. And the wording here specifically, the Shabbat Kodsho, comes from Nehemiah 9:14. Your holy Shabbat, your holy Sabbath. For our, what we call the Chatimah at the end, Baruch Atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Here God sanctifies, which is to make holy, Shabbat, as in Genesis 2:3. God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. But the idea that Israel, not God, must sanctify Shabbat is more frequent in the Bible. This is a subtle but important difference. Is Shabbat intrinsically holy from creation, or is it holy only when properly observed by we Jews? God's sanctification of the Shabbat recollects God's sanctification of Israel, thus uniting God, Israel, and Shabbat as a crucial theological threesome. God, Israel, Shabbat. So that blessing, from a biblical point of view, I hope you can see a great deal there. Let's move on to how we say Kiddush from the Halakha, the Jewish law of it all. This Kiddush for Friday night is said not only at home, but also in the synagogue for the benefit of originally travelers spending Shabbat as guests in town. But by the Gaonic period, guests started staying overnight in the synagogue. That was sort of uncommon. So a certain Gaon, High Gaon, forbade the synagogue recital of Kiddush based on the principle, Ein Kiddush ela b'makom seudah. There can be no Kiddush without an accompanying meal. But earlier, another Gaon, Nechronai Gaon, had permitted the practice not only for out-of-town guests, but also for local inhabitants who might not be able to afford one, and who would have to make their home Kiddush without it. Just so that you know, especially these are good things to not wine. So if you can't get wine or grape juice, you can say it over bread. Halakhically, that's allowed. The Rashba in Barcelona, 1200 to 1300, likened the twofold recitation of Kiddush, the one that we just did, to the repetition of the Amidah, the blessings that we say, the Shemona Esrei, instituted for the benefit of illiterate people who might not be able to say a private version. So that's sort of nice that if you don't know the Amidah, at least you've got the Kiddush, and it says some things together. Although illiteracy largely ended, we retain the reader's repetition. Similarly, we say Kaddish in synagogues, regardless of whether guests are actually present. This is one of those moments that we love to talk about how tradition and halakha got started, right? Originally, the Kiddush was only said at home, and then someone said, no, we should do it in the synagogue, and they said, only for travelers, and they said, no, only with a meal. And eventually, what became minhag was, well, we like saying it synagogue, so we say it regardless whether we have guests or not. So every Friday night, we say Kiddush. That's how Jewish law is born. Today, the minhag hamakom, the custom of the place, the usual custom of the community, is decisive. If there's no usual custom, logic would dictate that where there are no guests, Kiddush should be omitted, but if it's likely that some people who come to services may not know how to make Kiddush at home, saying it in synagogue may be continued. So again, that's more sort of the if-then situation of halacha. Why I typically, as a rabbi, choose to do it for all those reasons. We might have guests. There might be someone who doesn't know how to do it at home. All those are good reasons for us to continue to do it together as one community. Whatever we decide for the Kiddush, for synagogue, the home Kiddush, just like home Shabbat, candles, Kiddush, and motzi, is primary. It alone properly fulfills the obligation to remember Shabbat by sanctifying it. So even if you've said Kiddush at synagogue, you are expected to say it at home, at the very least for the household. The principle we saw, this principle was created with this Kiddush in mind. So even if we say it here tonight, you are, it's your informed choice, if you'd like to say it at home. This differs from other rules about blessings and things like that, for instance, one of the reasons why we don't recite the candle blessing and then sing the candle blessing is because you only say it once. You only hear it once. So we sing it together as one. We don't do a repetition. So, but this, in terms of Kiddush, differs. So some traditional rules for Kiddush. It should be recited with the mind focusing on fulfilling the mitzvah to remember the Shabbat day by sanctifying it. So get in the right headspace. Because this is the most important Kiddush, we know that there is a shorter one for Saturday at noon. If it was omitted for any reason on Friday night, it should be recited as early as possible up to the very end of Shabbat. In other words, if you didn't make it to services, or if you didn't say this Kiddush on that Shabbat, you have until the end of Shabbat on Saturday night to say it. So if you have Shabbat lunch or something like that, you could do it there. Typically, the Shabbat lunch Kiddush is shorter. Once Shabbat has begun, traditionally, one should neither eat nor drink except water before Kiddush. So, this is again in terms of Pikuach Nefesh. Once Shabbat begins, you're expected not to eat or drink anything during Shabbat. That's pretty good. We don't want people eating or drinking in the sanctuary. Water is fine, of course. But that Kiddush will be the first thing that you taste when Shabbat has begun. So it's a beautiful sort of idea. Okay, let's talk posture of Shabbat. We love the choreography of it. You're supposed to stand during the introductory verses of Genesis, the Vayer, Vayivoker, Yom HaShishi, all of that. Heaven and earth created to do. That testimony is delivered standing. And then when you're at home, not when you're in synagogue, I'm not going to sit down, but when you're at home, you sit and start with the Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. All blessings of enjoyment, such as wine or food or those sort of things, are preferred to be recited sitting. It doesn't mean that you have to do it sitting, but if you're at home, do the creation part standing, and then sit down and enjoy your Kiddush. And you sit during the entire Kiddush, both those blessings. However, there are other ideas from other rabbis who say you should sit during the entire Kiddush. Some said that you should stand for the entire Kiddush, including the preamble. For Shabbat is likened mystically to a bride whose blessings under the chuppah are said standing. So, given all of these alternatives, which you have, you can sit for part of it, stand for all of it, sit for all of it. You should follow your own family minhag, your own custom, or make one for your own family. But here are some things that they say shouldn't have any alternatives. Everyone should drink from the cup while sitting, for drinking establishes intent to establish a meal. This is for the home Kiddush, of course. The idea here is that Shabbat meal is not a cocktail party where one nibbles and sips, so to speak. It's a formal sit-down meal. This differs, of course, from a oneg, which we have here. So again, this is for if you are at home and having a Shabbat meal. You're not supposed to have a Shabbat cocktail party. You're supposed to have a Shabbat meal. The one making Kiddush should drink Kamalei Lugmav, almost a cheerful of wine. If this is impossible, someone else should quickly drink from the cup, making up for that amount. We'll have to look up what a tearful is. Sometimes rabbis have certain amounts like kazayid, like this is an olive's amount, but you should drink basically a gulpful. Everyone sits around the Kiddush for everyone present. If others want to join in or say Kiddush separately, they have their own cup of wine. So in other words, just like I do at the top of the bima, I'm leading Kiddush for all of you. If you were to be that leader at home, you would lead with it. If someone else wants to sing it with you, well, they can grab a glass of wine and lead it with you. But anyone leading the Kiddush has their own glass of wine. Men and women are equally commanded, traditionally, to make Kiddush. Kiddush should not be made by underage children, although for educational purposes, children may make their own Kiddush in full or in part. Luckily, we have things like grape juice, so if our little ones want to do some Kiddush or practice Kiddush, but typically it's reserved for those bar bat mitzvah age and older. So as we said earlier, right, what happens if you don't have wine? Well, you've got bread, but if there's no wine, you can wash your hands, say the motzi, and recite the whole Kiddush, slice the bread, and eat from it. The wine we use for Kiddush, this is important. The wine that we use for Kiddush should meet the highest standard required for the temple wine libations. It should be pure, without additions that make it sweeter or drier. This is all about how to get good kosher wine. Red wine, according to tradition, is superior to white wine. Some authorities actually forbade white wine. But if the white wine is better, I love this rule, if the white wine is better, it should be used instead of the inferior red. Listen to that rabbinic logic. Use red unless the red is less quality than the white. So if you've got a really great Napa Chardonnay, use that instead of, I don't know, whatever the Australian one is. But you get the idea. Red typically, unless the better wine. So, and I like that because you should use the best wine that you have for Kiddush because it's something beautiful and something to be sanctified. The wine should be kosher, preferably from Israel. The Kiddush cup must be what they call worthy of having a blessing made over it. So it shouldn't be disposable. So unless no others are available. So you shouldn't use it in a plastic cup or a paper cup unless this is the only one available to you. It should sit on something, a plate. It should be clean inside and out. And the cup should be poured to the top, but not overflowing. If you've ever sat in a Shabbat dinner or even a Shabbat lunch with some of our Orthodox friends, they really get it right up to that top. So you see, it's just like it's a little shaky. The wine is lifted at least one hand width high. It's raised with the right hand, not two hands, lest it look like a burden. They say it's okay. One hand, not two hands. Some raise from up here, but also hold it from below, like this. You may see people holding it like this, so that one's fingers encircle it like a pebble. Totally up to you, however you'd like to hold it and make it sanctified. Wine with alcoholic content is preferred rabbinically, but non-alcoholic grape juice is permitted as we use it for children. The elderly, or the ill. Judaism has had to recognize over the centuries that alcoholism is a serious disease. There's no question that grape juice would be permitted. So there is nothing that says you have to drink wine in Judaism. If you can't drink wine for lots of reasons, drink grape juice instead. And the last rule about Kiddush is how much to drink. Under no circumstances can Shabbat dinner become an occasion of inebriation. At least that's traditionally. I've seen plenty of Shabbat dinners where things get a little out of control. But the idea is that the Shabbat dinner itself is to be a holy occasion, and that Kiddush is not meant to start a cocktail party or drink. It's meant to sanctify Shabbat and that meal. So we've got a few minutes. So for some of our friends who are on Facebook or YouTube, any questions that you might have on Kiddush tonight, feel free to say something. And it doesn't have to be about Kiddush specifically. You can ask a question whenever I'm around. So if there is a question that you guys have, type it in, and we can answer it. While you're coming up with those questions, I'll tidy up a little bit for Shabbat. How about that? No questions so far. That means that I'm doing a great job. I'm being very explicit in all of my teachings. I think what's really important to take away is, again, the informed choice that we always talk about. And I feel like it's so important that hopefully this gives you some more ideas as to explore what is important to you and what is meaningful to you to experiment with. So I just got a important email from one of our congregants here. Absolutely, Diane, we can do that for you. Okay. All right, friends. So let's take about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back for some Kabbalat Shabbat. Okay, so 5-minute break, 5-minute bathroom break, and we'll see you for Kabbalat Shabbat. About 5 minutes. Thank you, friends. silence of night and eternity utters a ray. And eternity utters a ray. There's a song on the way, and a joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the scattering the song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters and eternity utters again. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm so glad to see so many of you virtually on our Facebook Live and our YouTube Live. Thank you for taking the time at the end of your week to share this time with us here at Temple Israel. Again, we are making sure to protect one another by not having services together in person, but rather obeying not only the laws of our state, but also in Judaism, Pikuach Nefesh, preserving and saving our lives by doing so. So please stay at home, stay safe, and we are happy to bring Shabbat to you virtually via live stream. So let us bring light into our world and into the sanctuary here and in your homes. So if you have not lit your Shabbat candles yet, this would be a great time to do so. So let me go and light them first, and then when I come back down, we'll sing the blessing together. So if you'd like to light your candles with me, that would be great. Fulfilling the mitzvah to Shamor v'Zachor, to guard and to remember our Sabbath. Our candles lit, we bring light into our homes, bring the peace of Shabbat into our homes as we sing the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להגיע של שבת. Shabbat Shalom. If you are on our live stream on Facebook Live and can see other friends, or if you're in live chat on our YouTube channel, please take a moment at this time to wish Shabbat Shalom to one another, connect with one another, and let people know that we are together, although we are apart. So wish one another a Shabbat Shalom. We'll let you know who's watching with you, and from a distance joining you here at Temple Israel and in your own home. So let's take a few seconds and wish one another a Shabbat Shalom from our homes, from one home to another. So we have wished one another Shabbat Shalom. We have lit our candles. It is time to formally welcome Shabbat into our presence, into our sanctuary, and into our houses with the words of Lecha Dodi, envisioning Shabbat as a bride that we rise for, that we welcome into our homes, something pure and beautiful. The words of Lecha Dodi to welcome Shabbat into our midst. If you feel comfortable in your own homes, rise up and face an entryway and welcome Shabbat into your midst. Come, my beloved, to greet the bride, the Sabbath presence. Let us welcome a Shabbat of peace and blessing. Sound of our gardeners behind me. We move to our call to prayer. As we spoke about last week, a moment for us to check in with ourselves, and I think it's really important on times like this when we are out of our elements, preparing ourselves to pray. How are we going to pray in our own homes? There's distractions. We're not used to sitting in this way. What are we wearing? It's different. So we must, in our own way, get ourselves ready to pray. And the Baruch Hu is that conversation with one another, with the words Baruch Hu Adonai Hamborach, is the service leader, or even yourself, saying, am I ready to pray? Are all of you ready to pray? And then that answer, Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed, that answer from all of you says, yes, we're here, we're ready to pray. So that's really, I think, a challenge for us here during the time of the coronavirus, is trying to get into the mindset of prayer in a different space. And so while it's challenging, I hope that we all try to do so together. I awake and I prepare. Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepare? Yalla die die die, 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 yalla die die die. Lay your love by. All of us now trying to get into that mindset for prayer, we turn to the words of roll into dark, envisioning for ourselves not just the blessing for God's ability to roll darkness from light and light to darkness, to create evening around us, but also for us to navigate the darkness in our lives, that with each day comes darkness, with each darkness comes a new morning. And so we give blessing to God, who rolls light away from darkness and darkness to light, noting that tomorrow is a new day and tonight is a new night. To dawn, to light, night becomes day, day turns to night, to dawn, to light, night becomes day, day turns to night, day on one night, little one day for shine. The words of Ahavat Olam remind us that God shows the Jewish people love as a community by providing the Torah, a way to live, a guidebook of morality and ethics. And how do we as a community show love for God? By following those commandments and living lives of justice and Tikkun Olam. And with all of these blessings, by the way, all of these this music, I know that most of you do not have a Siddur prayer book in front of you. So if you don't know the songs that we're singing, just sit and listen. And if you do know, sing along. But it doesn't matter what you have in front of you. What's important is the kavanah, the intention of praying together. Blessed are you, eternal our God, who loves our people, Israel. Well, friends, here we are at the most important prayer of our service, the words of Shema, the Kriyat Shema. And it's always, I think, difficult for me when there's an empty room, and I'm sure it is similarly difficult in your homes. The Shema is such a proclamation, a proud proclamation of our adherence to Judaism and monotheism. So I hope that we stand together tonight when we sing this prayer, this important call of the Shema together, and know that you say the Shema not alone, but with the whole community of Jews. Excuse me. We move to the words of Michamocha, the Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea. So many metaphors come to mind about us standing on the parted shores, all of us having to work together and march together, virtually, of course, but being able to maintain our community and crossing over a sea, waves and roughness, crossing this over into peace. And we are in the midst of this coronavirus quarantine and stay-at-home orders and social distancing. We are certainly feeling the walls of water around us, but we should remind ourselves that we have marched through this before, we have marched through difficulty before, and come out the other side to freedom. So as we sing our Shirat Hayam, our Michamocha, we remind ourselves that we too continue to march together under those walls of water as we cross from slavery into freedom. So watching all of those likes and loves pop up on Facebook, I'm reminded that if there is a song, a blessing, a prayer that you are really feeling and you are into, let everybody know by pushing that like or love button so that people know that you're feeling that prayer. And again, it's another way for us to remind each other that we're not alone, that there's other people watching and other people with us. So any of that sort of interaction, I really, really like. On live chat on YouTube, feel free to say, love this prayer or whatever it is, so that I know that you're doing okay. As we move to the words of Hashtivenu, again, there's so much to unpack here with where we are. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Just those first words are really so powerful now. Asking God that tonight all of us can lay down in a safe, healthy place in peace, and that tomorrow, with the help of God, our guardian, we wake up healthy, we wake up renewed, we wake up ready to start the day. So many need this prayer in our world right now. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Give us wisdom during this period of unknowns, all the things that we are wrestling with. We need comfort. Shelter us with that shelter of peace, that Sukkot Shalom. So we pray for all of you in each of your homes, wherever you are, that you have a Sukkot Shalom tonight, a shelter of peace, peace from anxiety, and peace from the unknown, to wake up tomorrow feeling better and stronger. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Le'amidenu Shomeinu Le'ha'im Ufos aleinu Sukkot Shalomenu Ufos aleinu Sukkot Shalomenu Shelter us beneath thy wing, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake to morning's light. Teach us daily wrong from right. Oh, Adonai. Amen. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us. May that be God's will. Let us turn now to the heart of our service, the words of our Amidah, as we begin our praying together. These opening words: Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Some of us have trouble praying during times like this. We're not in the place where we typically do. We're full of anxiety and questions. So this, which comes from the Psalm, reminds us, Psalm 51, reminds us that others in our place have asked God for help for prayer, and so we do so together. We bless the power of our God's relationship with our ancestors. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Imoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Bifta, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Neha. Adadol Hagibor Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Bekonei Hakol, Bezocher Hasnei Avot V'Imahot, Umeikula Lifnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo V'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magei, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magei Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. We acknowledge God's power and God's strength, God's mightiness. My tears bleed, we bless God's holiness. Sure, I'm not missing any messages there. So I think that once again, just as we pray these words of Hashkivenu, the words of Shalom Rav have great meaning for us today. We ask God to grant abundant peace to Israel and to humanity, and that may it be pleasing for God to bless us in every season, in every moment. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who blesses your people with peace. We hope that we can extend peace to all who need it in this world. Shalom Rav Yisrael Kasih. Shalom Rav Yisrael Kasih. Ki atavo melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atavo melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Kasih. Shalom Rav Yisrael Kasih. L'tov et Ava Yisrael b'chol lev b'chol shana Shalom Rav Yisrael Kasih. Shalom Rav Yisrael Kasih. Well, during a time of pandemic, a time of crisis, There can never be a more pertinent moment, an appropriate moment to say the words of Misha Berach, wishing healing upon all those who are inflicted, all those who are struggling to battle, all those who are dealing with those who have lost friends and loved ones, all those who need strength and healing, mental, emotional, spiritual healing during this time of crisis and anxiety and the unknown. So much can be questioned, so much can be disturbed by the unknown that's out there, the fear that we have. It's perfectly normal and important that we acknowledge those feelings. So here at Temple Israel, we extend some healing to Jason Beckner, Chuck Bogard, Eileen Goss, Harry Herschel, John Loeb, Brett Olson, Harriet Morrison, Michael Mund, Sandy Perlman, and Sharon Tallis. On Facebook or on YouTube, take a moment for you to say a name and share a name if comfortable by typing in that name. If you don't feel comfortable saying it, say it to yourself in your homes or out loud, whatever. But if you do feel comfortable, say a name, type a name, share it with us so that we can pray for them as well, hold them in our prayers. Please feel free. Any names people would like to present? Thank you. Think of all of those in your hearts and your community. And as we sing together these words of Misha Berach, please feel free to continue to say those names, to type those names. Join us in prayer for all those who are in need of healing during these difficult times. Source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives our lesson, let us sing. Bless those in need of healing, with their full eyes. Well, friends, again, Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to see you. I hope that you are finding Shabbat peace and being able to celebrate Shabbat in your own ways. As we trek on this week through the book of Leviticus, we have reached the Parsha Tzav, which begins with chapter 6 of Leviticus, the instructions on how to tend the fire used on the altar in order to properly engage in the ritual of sacrifice. It begins like this. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, "Command Aaron and his sons thus. This is the ritual of the burnt offering. The burnt offering itself shall remain where it is burned upon the altar all night until morning, while the fire on the altar is kept going on it. The priest shall dress in linen raiment, with linen breeches next to his body, and he shall take up the ashes to which the fire has reduced the burnt offering on the altar and place them beside the altar. He shall then take off his vestments and put on other vestments, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning, not to go out. Every morning the priest shall feed wood to it, lay out the burnt offering on it, and turn into smoke the fat parts of the offering of well-being. A perpetual fire shall be kept burning on the altar, not to go out." Now, after all of that, you might be asking yourself, so what? What does cultic ritual and the archaic practice of animal sacrifice have to do with anything we're dealing with today? Well, normally I'd agree with you. In any other year, I'd probably teach about history or language in the Parsha, or maybe about how Judaism has evolved. But this year, in 2020, in the heart of a global pandemic, in the middle of all the unknowns, the fear, the danger, the risks of infection, it turns out that we can take a lot from these ancient words. So first, let's discuss the word sacrifice. That word has changed meaning for us all since the pandemic began. Before COVID-19, we certainly made sacrifices from time to time. Well, let's be honest. We made adjustments in our lives. We made perhaps annoying changes to compensate for other issues. But today, we sacrifice. We sacrifice going out in public. We sacrifice attending social gatherings. We sacrifice sitting in our favorite restaurants or bars. We sacrifice birthday parties, quick trips to the market, sitting in the pews of our worship services. We sacrifice economic stability, the comfort of our office, the flexibility of school and childcare. Friends, we sacrifice it all now. Why do we do so? So that we maintain our health and make sure others are healthy too. Sacrifice, you might not know, is always holy. In fact, holiness is embedded in the word itself. Sacrifice comes from the Old French and Latin, from Latin, sacrificium, related to sacrificus, sacrificial, from sacer, holy. There is holiness in what we are doing to protect one another. The sacrifices we are making in our own lives to protect ourselves and others. Like the priests of old, we step up to the altar daily and make our sacrifices. We are both exacting in our rituals. We dress differently, we tend to the fire, we clean and restart each day. But above all, we keep that fire going. The priests are commanded twice in verse 5 and then verse 6 to keep the fire burning. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning, not to go out. And then in verse 6, a perpetual fire shall be kept burning on the altar, not to go out. And this, friends, is the heart of the lesson tonight. The perpetual fire. The sacrifice is made holy by keeping the fire on the altar perpetually going, never letting it go out. If this isn't a metaphor for endurance and stamina, for our dealing with this pandemic, then I don't know what is. In order to protect ourselves, to protect others, and make it through these difficult times, we must continue to keep the fire going, to tend to it, to carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place, never letting ourselves back down. No doubt, it's difficult to keep a fire going 24 hours a day, just as it's difficult to work from home and homeschool simultaneously, to avoid seeing friends and family. Our lives, like the fire, require constant care, the shifting of the wood, the cleaning of the ashes, the tending. But that's exactly what we must do in order to make it through this crisis. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and tend to the perpetual fire. And finally, we should remember that the word for the burnt offering, the sacrifice made up on the altar, is olah, whose root means not to burn, but rather to go up. It's the same root that connects us to aliyah, when we go up to read the Torah, or to make aliyah to become a citizen of Israel. It was once thought that sacrifice was a way to speak to God, to commune with the divine. Whether it be the ideas of God eating the burnt offerings or enjoying the pleasant odor of the sacrifice, it was always thought to be a connection with our God. And so this work that we are doing, washing our hands, practicing social distancing, wiping down surfaces, minimizing time spent away from our homes, they are all holy acts that will lead us closer to God. Every sacrifice we make is a connection to God and a movement towards communicating with the divine. Friends, the struggle is not over, not by a long shot. We can and should expect months more of distance and quarantine. It'll get harder long before it gets easier, especially should sickness come in numbers in our community. And for this reason, we must continue to practice the rituals of sacrifice for our time. Sacrifice in order to maintain your health and safety and that of those around you. Keep the perpetual fire going. Keep your spirits up. Keep working hard. And remember that each move you make is holy and brings you closer to a relationship with our God. Shabbat Shalom. Take a few moments, if you will, of silent prayer, reflection, or meditation. Our individual prayers, we ask God for them to be acceptable. words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts. Just at the beginning of Tefillah, we ask God to open up our lips so we may declare God's glory. In the end, we hope that the prayers that we made tonight are acceptable from our hearts. We do so with the words of the Kabbalat Shabbat. The words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. As we move to the concluding aspects of our service, we're reminded of the communal prayer of Aleinu L'Shabeach. Let us now praise the sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of the Creator, who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. Therefore we bow in awe and thanksgiving before the one who is sovereign over all, the Holy One, the Blessed One. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thus it has been said, Adonai will be sovereign over all the earth. On that day, Adonai will be one, and God's name will be one. V'ne'eman v'chaya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom mahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Tonight, at the end of our service, we give thought and honor to those who have passed away in recent days and years past at this season. We observe Shloshim, 30 days of mourning, for Deborah Lou Wallach. And we acknowledge and honor the yahrzeit, the perpetual memorial, for Yuri Stesselborn, Sarah Hahn, Edward S. Loeb, Louis Perlman, Rose S. Winsky, Max Hain, Samuel Silverberg, Sarah Dinerstein, Irving Reisner, Henry Rosenthal III, and Zelda Sion. We also acknowledge Aharon ben Akiva Bashira, as well as Yonah ben Abraham Vidina. To those names, we open it up to you to say any names of those you know who have passed in recent days, who you wish to honor, or in years past at this season. Please feel free to say a name aloud so that we can all grieve with you. You can type it in on Facebook or on YouTube. Either way, if there's someone you are thinking of, please feel free. We think, of course, of all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, the 6 million who died in the Shoah, and those who died defending this country and the state of Israel. We also give thought to those who have died from the coronavirus, not only the victims, but also those doctors who have died researching and defending and trying to heal as well. And we honor all those memories tonight. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agalah uv'izman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almayim. Yitbarach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithalev v'yithalal shemei dekudashah b'richu le'elam kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran bi'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shamayim v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. V'sei shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. May the one who brings peace to the high places bring peace over us, over all in mourning, and all humanity. As we say together, Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Before we end tonight, some announcements to keep you apprised of what's happening here at Temple Israel. Next week, April 11th, join us here live stream via Facebook and YouTube at 10 a.m. for Shabbat Shacharit services. Live stream is available on our YouTube channel. The YouTube live stream is able to do that live, and once the live stream is completed, you can go to our website at Temple Israel, and you can watch that and other past videos. You can also watch it in real time and after on our Facebook page. Before that, on Wednesday, we have a virtual Seder, which I will be leading from my home. Wednesday, April 8th at 6 p.m. I will lead from our Haggadah, sharing the journey, and help all those who are hoping to celebrate Pesach to do so in a virtual community setting. There's so many that we would have loved to see us together for our community Seder, our friends and our guests. Please join us virtually for a wonderful Seder. We'll have all the fixins, and you can follow along with you. You can have a group to do it, or you can just not do it at all and do your own Seder. But we wanted to present that option for you. So we hope to see many of you on that evening, Wednesday, April 8th at 6 p.m. We are still asking for donations up until the 8th, until Wednesday, for the toiletry drive for the YWCA. We've had some, we're so thankful for those who have brought it in. You can just buzz in, come in, drop it off, and leave. You don't need to have any interaction if you're here during business hours. So laundry soap, bleach wipes, kitchen trash bags, body wash, deodorant, makeup, all these sort of things of, that there are victims of domestic violence. All of this is still happening during coronavirus, and we give special thought to those victims of domestic violence who may be stuck with abusive spouses or others abusers in their homes. So please, we hope that they make it over to the YWCA and that we can provide them with what they need. Temple Israel temporary office hours. We would really like to see as little as possible people coming in and out of Temple Israel to avoid as much infection as possible. Kim will be here from 1 to 3 on Wednesday, so if you need to drop something off or give a phone call, that'd be fine. I'm here 9 to 3, Tuesday through Friday, so you can call me as well. But unless you're dropping off a toiletry or there's other sort of special mail that you need to pick up or something like that, please just keep those doors closed so that we can make sure that everyone stays well. This last newsletter, I hope you saw, the Voices from Quarantine. With many of our members staying at home or practicing social distancing, some of us can feel so isolated or not connected. We're asking you to send us check-ins, writings that you'd like to share, just some updates. They were in this past monthly newsletter, and they're wonderful to read. Send it to our Temple Israel at templeisraelwlaf.org. Send them by Tuesday of each week, and we can put them in the Thursday reminder. And then at the end of the month, we'll just put all of them in there. It's really nice to hear how people are doing. Hopefully you saw last week we started Torah from a distance. Every week I will be periodically uploading a learning session to the Temple Israel Facebook page and the Temple Israel website of a little bit of adult education, a little bit of Torah study. So look for that throughout the week, just to keep our minds going and learning. Just because we are stranded at home doesn't mean we can't continue to learn. And then the most depressing schedule of events and changes. April Shabbat services are all going to be live streamed. Whether or not the stay-at-home order is 2 weeks or whatever it is, CCAR and URJ has really pushed to make sure that we are maintaining live streams. So all of April is going to be live stream services. We're not going to have a Paul meeting, obviously, until May. To fill in Tuesdays, we're going to postpone our community Seder. Is virtual on the 6th, and the Lafayette Holocaust Remembrance Conference has been postponed till the fall. But there's still lots of things that are happening here at Temple Israel virtually: services, adult education, our Passover Seder. I also want to mention that on Sunday, on the LJCRS page, on our religious school page, I'm going to be leading at 11 a.m. a chocolate Seder. So if you want to log in to see that as well, that'll be on the LJCRS page. And I might be able to upload it here onto YouTube as well so that people can see that. So besides that, friends, please continue to practice social distancing and be safe. And we wish you a Shabbat Shalom. So Shabbat Shalom to everybody, an evening and Shabbat of peace. Stay safe, stay well. Shabbat Shalom.